Welcome to our annual meeting and our Black History celebration. At this time, I'd like to invite the chairman of our board to the podium, Pastor Gerald Bell. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to our illustrious and phenomenal President and CEO, Ms. Frederica Williams. Can we clap our hands for her? And at the same time, even before we introduce the board, you, like I, are so just overwhelmed by the service, the care, the commitment, and the dedication of all those at the Whittier Street staff. So can we just give them a round of applause? I think y'all got to do a little bit better than that. Come on. You know, they were the first to get me vaccinated and tested when everybody was scared, and we all came here. I know that on our agenda, we are to welcome our slate of officers, but I would also like to recognize and thank the board members of our Community Board of Directors of Whittier Street Health Center, and I will name them all. We have Miss Cindy Walker. Are we on live Facebook? Or are we on? Yes, we're on Facebook. We're on Facebook Live. Thank you for all of you who are on Facebook Live. Miss Alicia Wedderburn is also on the board. We also have Miss Apefa Ashiabor. She's here today. Clap your hands for her. She's here. We also have Miss Monica Johnson, who's on our board. Mr. Pastor Vincente Castro is on our board. And Counselor Eva Clark, who's our vice chair, she's here. Clap your hands for her. Are there any other board meeting members that I've missed? Mash. Yes. And Aurelia Williams. All right. And so I wanted to make sure we acknowledged all of our board members. At this time, we have a slate of officers that we have voted on, and it will be ratified and codified into our minutes. And we've utilized this time to let you know a little bit about what we do. We meet also monthly. We get a comprehensive presentation on all the work that the Whittier Street Health Center does and provides throughout our community. We provide our feedback, and we are grateful to do so. At this time, we will now have our president's address, call to action, mobilizing for health. Clap your hands again for Ms. Frederica M. Williams.
All of you should have a copy of our annual report. And what I'll do is to provide a high-level summary of the work that the Whittier team did with our donors and our partners. But before we start, I'd like to thank our board of directors, our volunteers, our board of directors, our President's Advisory Council, but also to thank the community for giving us the privilege and the opportunity to continue to be of service to you. This month, I celebrated 21 years at Whittier, and it felt like just the other day that I walked through the doors of the Whittier Street Health Center down the street and fell in love with the mission. And it's been such a blessing in my life, my family's life, and I hope that with God's help, I continue to do this for another 50 more years. So lift me up in prayers. So a call to action, as you will see as we go through the report, much of what we did during the pandemic, while most people were in crisis, is we focused on revitalizing, reimagining, based on our experiences, what we would like to do. We've always, from our early history, from our founding, we've always been focused on wellness and prevention. But through the years, we've recognized that social justice, racism, and all of the inequities play a part in our role. So as much as we want to address health equity, we also revise our mission statement to include social justice issues, social inequities, and the economic inequities. You frequently hear that your health is your wealth, but without the resources, you cannot maintain good health. So we've really refocused our program so we can focus on health equity, social justice, and the economic inequities, transportation, housing, food insecurity, those things that impact, that are barriers in our lives. So just to give you an overview of who we served last year, a significant 87% of our patients live below the federal poverty level. 44% are male. This is something that I'm going to move this chair. This is something that I'm proud of because we've made a commitment. I'm working. Because we've made a commitment. Typically, at your average health center, it's predominantly female. And many years ago, as a mother of 3 sons, we made a commitment to expand our men's health program, and men are equally represented at Whittier. Prior to the pandemic, we used to average about 150,000 visits. It went down slightly last year because people were still home. So we did 111,000 visits, almost 112, 23,000 outreach visits. And we serve 30,000 people. And what I love about Whittier is the diversity. We call ourselves the United Nations. People, we have empty chairs up here. We call ourselves the United Nations because we serve people from a diverse background. 39% are Hispanic, Latino, 12% are Caucasian, 2% other, 40% Black or African descent. And, so we have a good diversity here. So why call to action? If you look at the average life expectancy of the people that live in the communities we serve, they live at least a quarter century less than someone that lives in the Back Bay that has access to resources. And that is why we're focused on not just health equity, how do we get to health equity, those economic gaps. These injustices stem from decades. I don't have to tell this group here, these injustices stem from decades of inequities related to education, jobs, housing, food, healthcare access, and opportunities to build generational wealth. So while we're talking about healthcare, one of the reasons why we made a commitment working with our board of directors in the community to build a permanent building in Roxbury is we want to build our generational wealth. We want to have a level of prominency so that we're not wiped out with whoever's there. And so we serve as a voice for people eager to be heard. We want to be heard. We want a community to be heard. So, and we don't describe anyone that we serve as voiceless and faceless because we serve a powerful community and we are powerful because of them. And so today you'll hear how we answer the call to action again by supporting our patients where they are. So I'm going to introduce 3 of our patients through this presentation because we believe that access to quality health care is a universal right. It should be a civil right. It should not depend on health insurance or access to health insurance. And one of the things that we do is we provide care to patients regardless of their ability to pay for services. So insurance is not a barrier because our community confronts so many barriers. And of course, when you see the diversity in the patient population, it's reflected in the staff. We have the cultural competency, we have the lived experiences. Every one of us have in some ways experienced what our patients are experiencing, so that gives us the empathy, the compassion, and the skills to be able to be of service with respect and dignity. So you'll get to hear about Jaya, who graduated from high school with a high GPA. But in our community, if you identify as an LGBTQ the average life expectancy of a minority LGBTQ plus is 35 years. So that is why that's a vulnerable population. As we talk about the average life expectancy of a black person being 65, think of that person living half of the year. So we need to support them. And then Angel. Angel is a Boston public school teacher who had underlying health conditions that were triggered, including anxiety and PTSD that were triggered during the pandemic. And Everest, who's a professor at Roxbury Community College, he's from Nigeria, and he chose Whittier as his medical home. And Gian, who is here, Gian was, okay, so Gian came to us. Part of the economic inequity that we focus on is creating a pipeline for students of color, whether it's working with Madison Park. Gian came to us through the Cristo Rey High School. It's having them see minority CEOs, doctors, nurses, physical therapists, and seeing the possibility. Representation matters, and we represent, and we make sure that all of us, I have students that I'm mentoring, and we all, you know, they want to be a CEO right away, and I have to tell them there are steps to get there, but I'm glad that you are. I mean, it might be my job for right now while they watch me, but I love it. I mean, because if they didn't see me, they couldn't imagine the possibility. So Gian came to us through Cristo Rey, and now he went on to be a medical assistant, and he has aspirations of becoming a nurse. But what is beautiful, Gian, stand up. So Jaya says, even little kids are going through things. She said, she wants to be a teacher that can not only teach, but also give the kids love they might not get at home. So here's someone working with Associate Director of Behavioral Health Services, Brenda, and she can, you know, she graduated from the Boston Day and Evening Academy, one of our school partners. 2 years ago, she started receiving counseling from Brenda, and on top of navigating her own LGBTQ journey, she felt responsible, you know, as we all do. We are a community that have to not only care for ourselves, but care for our extended family. So she felt there was a responsibility to care for her twin sister who has autism. And she, you know, and at the same time, exploring whether she wanted to be a princess in pants or a prince in dress. As you know, that also comes with bullying that then leads to a lot of mental health issues. But with the support of Brenda and our team, Jaya was able to focus in school, and she graduated with a high GPA and is now considering a career in teaching. And a teacher, we heard of so many. What we've done is, in our partnership with several of the schools, Boston Day and Evening Academy, the Dearborn STEM School, Dudley Charter Initiative, Epiphany School, Cristo Rey, Mother Caroline, so many schools. As we were focusing on our students who folks were dealing with obesity, mental health issues, we've also been working with the teachers. A lot of the schools are calling us to work with the school coaches that coach the teachers, because the teachers are also going through a lot of difficulty and challenges. So Angel was teaching during the pandemic, and she said she heard a lot. Is Angel here? She's here. Oh, Angel, of course, come on. And she's dressed in there's Miss Angel. So Miss Angel was a teacher in a Roxbury Middle School, and she said she had a loud noise. And one of the things that I'll say is, I remembered receiving a call from, you know, Reverend Walker, in the middle of the pandemic, 2020. So this is who we are. Whether you're the CEO or the physician, we all get phone calls and we are all caregivers. So the call came to me, she texted me and said, I have one of our parishioners that has had an experience that has triggered anxiety. And so I ran down to Dr. Wright, who's our medical director, and we made arrangements for Angel to be picked up. All through this, I hadn't met her because I'm not part of the care team. My job was to connect her to care immediately, and since then. And then a year and a half later, I met her. Look at her beautifully dressed. So thank you, Angel. And now she says she's part of our club 1290, which is the youngest population in this building. Why are you standing, Miss Club, the matriarch of Club 1290? And if I did not cheer, she earned it. Yes, okay. So out of the pandemic, we have this group of seniors. They were here yesterday. If you are here any day that they're here, between them, yesterday we were dancing 60s music. I could hear the music from the 60s all the way up on the 5th floor. And they range from age 60 to 97. And the 97-year-old is the most vibrant. So Miss Young is a part of it. And now she has this big community. Okay, Dr. Owino, yeah, okay, she's gone back. So the next person I would like to share is Dr. Anuho, PhD. The thing about people of color or anybody is that health issues does not care whether you have a PhD or whether you're homeless. So he decided that he wanted to, he's been receiving his care. And for him, during the pandemic, we received funding from the FCC to expand our telehealth. We could not get people into the clinic. We were open. We were one of the only health centers that were open all through the shutdown because we were a safety net and people need to come to us not just for their health care. We expanded our food pantry. We launched an emergency daycare, child care for kids. We did whatever it was to support folks, because we know a lot of the students in school get their breakfast, lunch, and dinner from school, and when school was shut down, we need to be that place of access. But we also launched a technology remote program. In most of the wealthier neighborhoods, people can afford, there's no issue with the digital divide, there's no issue with these tools are about $2,000 to $3,000. And we were able to get a grant from the FCC, and now people with hypertension and diabetes can monitor themselves remotely, transmit the data to their electronic medical records, have a visit with their provider, all from the comfort of their home. So they're not coming in or testing their blood sugar. So he is, this grant allowed us, and we have about 3,000 patients with hypertension and 6,000 people with diabetes that are receiving this life-saving treatment through this funding. And Everett says Whittier is very crucial to the life of this community and to the health of this community. And he tells us that and makes sure. So he also has become a role model for the RCC students, many of whom reflect the patient population we serve. And then I already introduced Gian, who came here as an intern, and now he's a medical assistant. It's wonderful when you're 20, you can put your age up there. So Gian is don't ask me now, So he is a homegrown talent. But what I've learned from a lot of people who ended up in medicine or whatever it is, having that experience with their pediatrician. So I see him now playfully working with the kids in the pediatrics department as he's exploring. His family is from Syria, and now he's exploring. But also, he is in a team where the lead physician is also from Syria, and a physician from Nigeria, and just a diverse community. And so he enjoys his job and said, great team, great patients, great providers. I want to be here for a while. We hope you'll be here for a while and come back. So that's it. And so I want to introduce the other thing that we did. We launched during the pandemic. You've seen that we launched our mobile health vans. We have a fleet of 4 vans that goes out into the community to provide services, because transportation, imagine when the Orange Line was shut down for a minute there, how difficult it was for our patients. So what we do is we go to public housing developments, we go to schools to meet patients where they are. And then through the process, we also launch school-based clinics. So this is the school-based clinics. One that we just added this year is the Boston Day and Evening Academy, and their focus isn't only on physical wellness, but also on mental health and connection to social services. So we have a range of schools I already mentioned that are there, BDA, Cristo Rey, Dearborn, where we're going to the students. So for schools that have the space, we provide the services inside the building. For schools that do not have the space, we use our big recreational van to provide services. So that is critical in addressing health issues. And then folks have been politically conversing about the mass and caste issue, but Boston, where people in Roxbury, residents spend an average of more than 30% of their income on rent. And we know how expensive it is to live in Boston. And so we started working on mass and caste long before it hit the headlines, because these are our patients. We always try to target the most vulnerable, so we are meeting them where they are. So this is a team who's been out there, and most recently, I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, we've launched a day engagement center for the homeless right in between our building and the Reggie Lewis. And it is a beautiful trailer. It's co-ed. It treats the patients with dignity. Of course, we'll focus on mental health, substance abuse, but diabetes, HIV, but most importantly, they have a place off the street where they can connect, build community. They do, I was there the other day and the women were painting their nails. That got me thinking to go do my manicure myself, because my nails were looking horrible. So you gotta learn from their patients. They were so, I mean, they get the care. So those soft things that make people feel empowered, we do. So again, answering the call, we have a team. The Tribe Diagnosis team is through a funding we received from Shamsha that focuses on substance abuse, mental health, and homelessness. And then the Day Engagement Center I mentioned is right there, and people are receiving care and connecting to care. And knock on wood, it's been safe, there's security, there's been no incidences. Our team, this outreach team here picks them up, goes to the shelters or the streets, pick them up and brings them to the engagement center and then takes them home. Because we know that as close as it is, were you around on Saturday how cold it was? I didn't even go through my front door. So we knew that it didn't matter how beautiful the space is, if we didn't take care of that barrier, transportation, it'd be difficult to connect them to care. And then the HIV team, unfortunately, part of what we're doing is educating our community about infectious diseases. Roxbury still has the highest rates of STIs, chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, but we are still testing people and educating people are testing positive for HIV. So we're making a lot of progress, but there's still a lot of work to be done, so we're not resting on our laurels. And then we have the housing support team. Briefly, I'll just say Nestro Castro served is a veteran. And for years, I would see him here volunteering in our men's health clinic and helping people with housing and housing application. What I did not know, and Nestro comes put together. His suit matches his watch matches his wig. But what I didn't realize was that Nestro was homeless. So as he was helping other people in that dignified way, And then I received a Google alert, December 2021, that talked about this person who had filled out 800 applications, a veteran that served us. And he finally had housing, so I had to go to him and say, all this time you were doing the work, he was carrying his own burden. So again, when we talk about lived experience, that's it. And then Brenda heads the neighborhood trauma team. What the neighborhood trauma team does in Roxbury, we're the lead. If there's a shooting, if there's a death, if there's something that happens, we have an immediate crisis team because people deal with grief differently. Some folks, it's immediate. Some folks, it's longer term, especially for children, maybe in middle school. So there's a trauma team, and we have a healing group but also help to connect people who've been exposed to violence to care. So again, these are some of the things that we did in fiscal year 2022. We expanded our teams. We launched our Test to Treat clinic. Most recently, we were selected by the state to be a state-sponsored site for COVID. I know people think it's gone. It's still with us, not as intense, but it's there. And what we found is getting people antiviral treatment. So if you know of anyone who needs to be tested, who needs to be boosted, but also who needs antiviral access to antivirals, we have a clinic on the 5th floor. And now we can do it through IVs, as long as people are connected in 3 days. But this is not part of our presentation, but I want to share that last year, breast cancer is still a major issue in the community, especially for Black and brown women. And most recently, I was just saying to board members, as I was watching President Biden do his State of the Union speech and navigating that whole room there, that's another conversation. But you know, 60 years he's been doing this. He knows what he's doing. Yeah. But most recently, we heard from the Biden Harris administration that we are one of 22 health centers in the country selected for his moonshot cancer grant, and we're going to be co-hosting. I tell you though, none of this would happen if it wasn't for the community. So when you serve the community, they make sure that it's heard. So we do home delivery for pharmacy, diabetes group, youth violence prevention. On site, we launched a youth development program at the Alice Taylor Housing Development during the pandemic when people were worried about children just being around with, my mother used to say, an idle hand is the devil's workshop. So we were trying to close that workshop there, and so that's continued. So just, financial counseling, case management, and then most importantly, we launched our own Center for Health Equity Research. And what we want to do is to bring research to the community. We don't want to be an afterthought of a major institution that gets a big funding. We want to be part of that too. We want to be part of that too. But what it is, this will be driven by the community. Is that Bruce Beaker stuff? Yes, okay. So I know that I had Bruce participated in some research, and we want to make sure that whatever we do, our patients don't end up with a bill. You know what I'm talking about? But that we make sure that it is led by the community. So it's not, but what's different too is we are incorporating social issues and asking people, how does racism play to you having mental health issues? And looking at the impact on hypertension and cardiovascular. I know that on any given day, my anxiety level is at a very high level, so I live the life. And then a lot of recognitions. We presented Director of Lab Services, also from Syria. Your Syrian folks are taking over the health center. And lots of recognition for the organization. Financial report, I know that when I talk to our corporations, it's good to have all these nice stories, but if you're not viable, then you are just today's story and tomorrow's history. So we made sure we still provide, as I said, we provided almost $2 million in free care. 100% of our social services are free. We still in a Commonwealth that has a high insurance rate. 27% of our patients do not have insurance. But yet we make the numbers work, and so we generated a surplus, and what that surplus does is we then reinvest it into programs so we can reinvest in the community. And knock on wood, all through the pandemic, through the hard work of the staff and generosity of a lot of people and creativity, we've always maintained a strong financial position because we want to be here forever. So you need that to be able to do that. And so, again, I mentioned some of my colleagues are here. We're very creative. We think outside the box. We're not your regular doctor's office. This is a full continuum of care of a multidisciplinary team. So I'd like to ask you to give my colleagues a round of applause because I come up with some creative stuff. I have some of my senior managers here, Christine, and what we do, I will tell you, during the pandemic, most times people mention Frederica Williams, but during the pandemic, I say yes to whatever I know aligns with us, and then I go to them and say, how we need to get it done, what do you need us to do? And so I without hesitation, so folks will say, oh, Whittier says yes without hesitation. That's because I know I have a team, the team that supports us. Yes. Christine, for example, we said yes, the city asked us many times, we said yes to serving the homeless, or yes, we'll open a trailer. And then I went to Jim Lee and said, well, where do they have the trailer? Then I went to Christine. And so between everyone running to Home Depot, running to Christine is going to Home Depot, getting shelves, I'm ordering coffee and tea on Amazon, I'm bringing the boxes. My neighbors are seeing all these boxes in front of my house. That's how it gets done. It's a team effort. We are all a part of a team. It's not a hierarchy here. We're here to serve the community. And also, we have lots of generous donors. We want to thank them for making it possible, and many, many partners who helped us. But also our board of directors, Pastor Bell already mentioned them to you. I have John Jenkins here, who's a member of our President's Advisory Council. I meet with the board meets on a monthly basis. Who's that?
I missed Peter when I announced it.
Okay. So I put it up there. So the board of directors meet on a monthly basis, and we have all kinds of communities. So if you know of people that you want to recommend up for the board of directors, Attorney Eva Clark is the chair of our governance and nominating committee. We also have our President's Advisory Council. Many of these people, I have a roast committee, a fundraising that we host every April. And when I want to make sure that there's color in the room, I can always count on John Jenkins. So text him to say, are you going to be on the score? Like, get on the call right now. You know, I need company. So he's always there for me. And of course, I mentioned our senior leadership team, Jim Lee, who's worked with me for 25 years, even before here. Dr. White, where you going? Dr. Ndugula, Christine Pajuelo. We have about 400 people here. Michael Ndugu, Chief Information Officer, 400 plus people who all make it possible. And just, to show off some pictures here, this is our roast for Whittier, Women for Whittier event 2 years ago. All of our community events, we'll see you later. All of our community events. So again, this is the call to action, and we made a strategic decision to host our annual meeting in February. The shortest month, but all of you know Black history, especially as we hear stories of all of the challenges that our Black men still confront in their lives and in Black people. So as we look at disparities and inequities, it's interesting that we choose to do that in Black History Month. you know, despite we're still seeing lynching, racial profiling, police killings, disparities that are rooted in racism and inequity. So those are the things that, while we're celebrating some of the accomplishments, we know that we have not even scratched the surface yet, and we still have a lot of work to do. So hold us accountable, and we're holding ourselves accountable. And as we talk about Black resistance, it's a time to, you know, recognize, realize, and rejoice for the many accomplishments that we have, and also look at our resiliency, our resistance. I mean, when you look at the history of how much we've endured, whether you were born here or an immigrant, and how much more we have to do. We've come a long way, and we still have a long way to do. But the reason why, if you look through the annual report, you will see physicians, Black male physicians like Dr. Wright, who the staff will tell me when I speak to Dr. Wright, I feel comfortable because he's not connecting to you as a doctor, he's connecting to you as another person of color. And that is the thing here. The people that thrive at Whittier are the ones that realize that we are servant leaders and we're here to serve. So that is my report, and before I move over to, are you going to come do something?
Yeah, I got
okay.
it. I got it.
Yeah. So, but Pastor Bell has to end the annual meeting. So again, any questions about anything I presented, any recommendations, any suggestions? Okay, Pastor Bell, it's all yours.
Let's clap our hands. So I'm here to adjourn the annual meeting. It'll probably take a couple, 2 or 3 hours. We do need to just pause for a moment for our brothers and sisters in Turkey and in Syria.
Yes.
Can we just bow?
Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
Thank you. It's so important because you know our hearts are breaking. The tolls would be 16,000 the last I saw of deaths, and it's impacting us all. As we close, one of the things that does not get talked about enough in these environments are what the board does. And what you see with funding and what you see with all of the programs and support, what you don't see is that this institution and its leadership, they cross every T, they dot every I, and when it comes to all types of federal, state, local regulations, we always, always, always make sure, because of Frederica and her leadership team, they make sure that all of the regulations are tight. That's why so many people give money, because they know the money's going to be spent well and the programs are going to be done.
Yes.
And you have to have an administration that really does the technical work that the leadership provides.
Yes.
We need to
Thank you, Pastor Bell.
and because of Black History Month, I got to acknowledge 2 of my Black male leaders and mentors, John Jenkins and Brother Bickerstaff.
Yes, yes, yes.
I know there might be some others here behind their masks, but you always need some, I don't care who you are, you need somebody that you can look up to.
Yes.
And can I say amen?
Amen.
And we need to adjourn.
So church has ended. Go in peace, the Lord and serve God. But before we do, I had an announcement I wanted to make, but I couldn't do it before my presentation, but I have to do it now. Last year, one of our very own colleagues, Michelle Ward, who's been with us for many years. So Michelle managed the HIV team, the outreach team, the engagement team. She was here fussing around last year when we had the Black History celebration. I know Christine is crying. She passed away yesterday. So it's a difficult day. Young woman, and so please remember her family. She was just here. One of the things that I'm so grateful for when we talked about the award, I received an award at the Harvard University. And I had invited Christine, and it worked out that she had something to do, and I was so blessed to have Michelle with me. And she was the best person. You know, sometimes people get into an event and they get so caught up with who's presenting. No, no, no. Michelle was focused on pampering me and taking care of me, and she had all kinds of phones and pictures going on. She wasn't, you know, and we ended up taking a picture, and she was just so happy. And within a few weeks of that event, she was a breast cancer survivor. She just spiraled down, and she passed away yesterday. And what is most sad is she has an 18-year-old young man who her husband died when he was 3. So now the poor kid is orphaned. He's at Milton Academy. He's waiting for his college. He graduated. The school made sure they had a graduation, and she witnessed it as she was in hospice. So she at least got. And she kept saying to me, "I just want to see him through graduation." And they had it this week. So we're lifting up prayers. He's applied to UPenn and Princeton, and I have no doubt that he will get there. So again, here's someone who was serving, and even in all of her pain, she continued to serve. So we wanted to just share that with you. It's been very difficult. But now it is my pleasure to introduce to you someone I met 21 years ago. My good friend, Imari Paris Jeffries. So when I started, well, actually I was over at another health center, was it 2002? 2001 we started, and then I started here 2002. We did a leadership program on social justice called Lead Boston. Many of you would have heard. So many of the programs that we started here, I mean, God had it that was the foundation. We looked at housing issues, health care, the economic inequities, but the criminal justice system. I remembered our visit to the South Bay House of Correction, where we witnessed a panel. Remember the 3 young women and the 3 men, and the theme there was a lack of reentry services, and the access to health care. Are you okay? You look like you're getting the most word a long time ago. So it's been a long time. So I've just watched him. You know, we have his bio, but I wanted to speak personally. I've just watched him in awe. And then as I was watching him on TV being interviewed, reflecting back to 22 years ago when I met him, he's been so impressive. But what's impressive of Imari also is the kind of mentorship and the role model that he is for many of our young men. So when you see Imari, see the embrace, which he'll tell you about, and see all of that, know that journey. But so he's the executive director of Embrace Boston, a nonprofit that was founded in 2017 with a mission to dismantle structural racism, and that's why I selected him. Of course, I was impressed with the Embrace, but the whole work that is done through their work at the intersection of arts and culture, community and research and policy. We're going to be calling on you as we do our research, our health equity research. Embrace's work is intended to create a radically, and we need radicalism, a radically inclusive and equitable Boston where everyone belongs and the BIPOC community prospers, grounded in joy, love, and well-being. He brings a wealth of experience from nonprofit management, community activism, education reform, and social justice sectors. He's a veteran, and he's working on his PhD. So Dr. soon-to-be Imari Paris Jeffries, please join me at the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It's so great to be here. I'm not a Baptist minister, so I won't keep you for 3 hours. I know I'm standing in between everyone and lunch today, so I'm going to keep my remarks short. And I wanted to start off by thanking Frederica for her leadership and her dedication to the community and this work. Frederica is a role model and a living legend. I also want to thank the staff and the board, and Bruce in the back, who has been a mentor and role model for me for years. I'm on the verge of my 50th birthday. This is my Jubilee year. And so I've gotten to know so many of you in this room for a very long time. And so it's so great to be here. I know a few years ago we were talking about, I say in the dark ages of the pandemic, when we were really scared, when things shut down, and most of us were trying to work from home. And this new word came up, essential workers. And I had never used the word essential worker before 2020. I don't know if many of us use essential worker in a sentence before that time. We were also talking about hidden figures, folks, and there was a movie that came out called Hidden Figures, folks who did the work, folks who we depended on, folks who were the foundation of our society that didn't get acknowledged in the way that we knew they should have been. And so in this opportunity to create a memorial for Dr. King, in this moment in time where we were talking about essential workers, we knew in Boston that it was important to raise up and lift the hidden figure of Coretta Scott King and create a memorial that included both of them in the embrace. You know, Mrs. King was in all the photos. She was the heart and soul of the movement. Many times she would sing at the rally, but she did not get the due of her impact of the movement. You know, earlier I just said I was 50 years old, and so I was born in 1973. And so I never got to hear Dr. King live. I never turned the radio on and saw him. I never turned the TV on and saw him at all. Most of my recollection of Dr. King, most of the things that I remember about Dr. King came directly from the voice and the words of Mrs. King. She was the orator, she was the translator, she was the steward of Dr. King's history for me and many of you in this room. And so I want to raise up Mrs. King in this moment, whose passing was January 30th, and so we were celebrating that. And so I want to raise her up, but I wanted to also start by reading a quote from her, because I think in thinking about the remarks, thinking about the community that we're in, thinking about Frederica talking about the history of Whittier Street and the things that this community has given to the larger community, it felt appropriate. To me, the beloved community is a realistic vision of an achievable society, one in which problems and conflicts exist, but are resolved peacefully and without bitterness. In the beloved community, caring and compassion drive political policies that support the worldwide elimination of poverty and hunger and all forms of bigotry and violence. The beloved community is a state of heart and mind, a spirit of hope and goodwill that transcends all boundaries and barriers and embraces all creation. At its core, the beloved community is an engine of reconciliation. This way of living seems a long way from the kind of world we have right now. But I do believe it is the goal that can be accomplished through courage and determination, and through education and training, if enough people are willing to make the necessary commitment. And so that was Mrs. King describing the beloved community. You know, and I'm still thinking about the impact that Whittier Street has had on the community, especially in the dark ages of the pandemic. You know, we in that time, we were talking about essential workers so often that it became a new word in the dictionary. And I know many of us, when we were in our living rooms and we were worried about how we were going to get our groceries, and we didn't know if we should wear a mask, not wear a mask. There was no safety masks. There were a shortage of medical masks. We didn't know if we were going to make it, some of us. And some of us lost our loved ones and our friends and families, and we couldn't be there. But many of us made promises during those dark ages. Some of us promised that we were never going to wear uncomfortable pants and we were going to wear comfy pants every single day. And I see that some of you are keeping that promise. Some of you said you were never going to wear hard-bottom shoes and that you were going to wear slippers to work. And some of y'all are wearing slippers to work, but I guess this is a medical facility, so the clogs are kind of like slippers. And some folks were, made promises to catch up on shows. And I don't know if you remember the show Tiger King. We were all watching Tiger King during the pandemic. We were wondering what was going to happen with Carol Baskins, and that was a part of our everyday lives. But we also saw something during 2020. I think many of us have experienced this in this room. Many of us knew about these challenges, but many of us who didn't saw the public lynching of George Floyd. We saw the assassination of Breonna Taylor. We also saw the public lynching of Ahmaud Arbery. And we made promises. And Boston made a promise. I think if there are computers in heaven, Dr. King is in heaven operating Wikipedia. And so I don't know about you, if ever you were feeling a certain way and you needed a quote, if you Googled, searched the quote on something, Dr. King probably wrote about it, he preached about it, he said something about it. And so one of the promises I made was thinking about Boston post-pandemic. And so I thought about what would Dr. King think about a new Boston post-pandemic. And lo and behold, there is a quote from Dr. King about Boston. So I want to read this excerpt. I was educated here, and it is one of the cities which I call home. I come here not to condemn, but to encourage. It would be dishonest to say that Boston is Birmingham or that Massachusetts is Mississippi. But it would be irresponsible of me to deny the crippling poverty and injustice that exists in some sections of this community. The vision of the new Boston must extend into the heart of Roxbury. Boston must be a testing ground for the ideals of freedom. I'm gonna do a quick poll. So I'm gonna have 3 questions. So I need you to raise your hand on one of the questions, and let's see if your arms are working. This is the poll section of the speech. So if everybody on count of 3, raise your right hand if you're able to. Okay, so we know some of y'all, that's the other hand, some of y'all from there. That's good, that's good. That's good, most of us did it. And so how many of you think that the most memorialized person in our country is George Washington? If you think it's George Washington, raise your hand. Okay. Everybody say one George Washington, Pastor.
We want to hear all the others.
Okay. You want to wait. All right, how many of you think that it is Abraham Lincoln? Raise your hand. All right, there's a couple Abraham Lincolns in the back. How many of you think that it is Christopher Columbus? There was only 3 choices. Y'all not raising your hand? Okay. All right, I'll tell you what it is. The most memorialized person, and there's my sister Linda in the back, the most memorialized person in the country is Abraham Lincoln. That's right. So one Abraham Lincoln. Yo, yours too? All right. And so the second most memorialized person is George Washington. The third most memorialized person in the country is Christopher Columbus. The fourth most memorialized person in the country is Martin Luther King. But I'm going to skip and let you know that the 6th most memorialized person in the country is Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee, of the 50 most memorialized people in this country, Robert E. Lee is number 6. At number 13 is Jefferson Davis, President of the Confederacy, the 13th most memorialized person in the country. And rounding off that top 50 at number 43, we would probably call him a domestic terrorist these days. That's the language that we use. But the 43rd most memorialized person in this country is the founder of the Ku Klux Klan, Nathan Bedford Forrest. The 43rd most memorialized person in the country. If all of a sudden all of us were to disappear, we were gone, vanished into thin air, and space aliens had to look at the story of America just based on our monuments, in the same way that we try to anthropologically look at the society of the ancient Egyptians. And so if space aliens had to do that for America, the American monument story is a story of war, is a story of the subjugation of indigenous and black people, it's the story of a mostly white male nation, and it's the story of hate. Did you know that there are 723 Confederate memorials in this country? 723 memorials of hate. Did you know that there are 350 schools, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, and colleges in 21 states named after Confederate generals? Did you know that there are 9 military bases? Now imagine being a soldier. And me and the Pastor Bell talked about this because I think he was at Fort Lee. Fort Lee. Fort Campbell. You were at Fort Campbell. Oh, Mr. Jenkins, we talked about Fort Lee, named after Robert E. Lee. 9 military bases. Imagine being a soldier and going to a base named after a Confederate leader. What does that mean to serve your country? Imagine being in one of the cities where there are 723 Confederate memorials. 7 are in New York, 1 is in Massachusetts. What does it say for your opportunities as a person of color, as a woman, as an immigrant, as someone who's different, when there are 723 memorials built on hate existing in your city? So these over 1,000 symbols of hate are part of this culture war that we're experiencing, and you see it every day coming out of Florida, and Ron DeSantis is saying something. We're in the middle of this culture war. These monuments, these symbols built on hate that have socialized us into the way of being. And there's something special happening in Massachusetts. Imagine going to a community health center named after a courageous leader built on love.
All right.
Imagine going to an elementary school named after courageous leaders that you know from your city, built on love.
Yes.
Imagine being in a city in the middle of the pandemic, coming out of the dark ages, the scary part of the pandemic. There's a beautiful memorial honoring the legacy of Dr. and Mrs. King, who met in Boston, that there are 65 other leaders from Boston from 1950, 60, and 70 that are enshrined on that memorial, that there is a memorial in the neighborhood, America's oldest black neighborhood, where the residents of Beacon Hill were displaced, honoring their legacy. The place where 12th Baptist Church was, the place where Charles Street AME was, the place where Phyllis Wheatley walked, a memorial to honor this black neighborhood that no longer exists, and put a name and an address to those black folks honored on that memorial. And that is what we just built here in Boston, another memorial on love, to join the memorial of Whittier Street Health Center. I want to thank you for allowing me to take some time to talk about this memorial, to talk about this process. If you haven't seen the memorial, you know, I as your time permits, would urge you to go down there and see it. One of the things of the memorial, I'll let you in on a little secret, and I'll close. The memorial, the plaza that the memorial sits on is 1965 Freedom Plaza, and so it marks one of the largest civil rights marches in New England, the largest, where Dr. King and other leaders marched from Roxbury to the Parkman Bandstand, steps away from where the memorial is. The memorial, the 1965 Freedom Plaza, is designed in the African American quilting tradition. And so quilts were one of the few things that our enslaved ancestors could pass on from one generation to another. It was the only thing that they made with scraps and pieces of cloth to keep them warm, but they also had messages. They were maps. Boston was one of the final stages of the Underground Railroad. 12th Baptist Church used to be known as the Fugitive Slave Church. And so embedded within that plaza, there is a quilt, and there are 65 names, and those names are in a pattern. And that pattern is hearkening to a trail. It's a map. And so when you go down there, you should follow the pattern if you are able to of the names, and it's a map. And if you go in the nighttime and you see the underlit, the lights of the night, they represent stars. And so there's no big shiny lights on it, it's underlit. And so those are the stars that light the trail to bring people home back to this neighborhood in Boston. Thank you for being a part of our beloved community. Thank you and congratulations to Whittier Street Health Center for another phenomenal, incredible year. I'm so honored to be a part of this community.
And there's more to come.
And there's more to
And
come.
there's more to come. And one of the things we would like to suggest, I was speaking to Brenda Daly, is, we're gonna do that. So we do host a summer camp for our young ones. Imari, all that description, we would like to do tours from the neighborhood to embrace and have folks explain. So one of the summer camp, the seniors?
Yes.
Yes, the seniors are Make sure you have a lot of energy when they show up. When the seniors from media show up. But we also, we're going to be relaunching our summer camp. We, bring, I was saying to Brenda, when my kids were younger, in February, if you didn't have plans for summer camp, you were out. Yes. And I needed to work, so we had to find. So out of that is how we created the summer camp here at Whittier, where we bring kids from the housing development. So I'd love to see them being exposed to, but not just to go watch it, but have someone, do a tutorial for them. So that'd be good. But I'd like to invite Pastor Bell and Eva Clark to present Imari with the President's Award. So thank you for those wonderful words of inspiration. And you guys can do your presentation.
Yeah, we're gonna do it right here.
Yeah, that's fine. No, but let them do it.
I'm gonna let her talk.
No. I am just so honored and so pleased to present you with this award. And please come up here and join us.
We gotta put it right here. Oh, use this back there.
Now, your turn to be in the middle.
I'm taking my notes, bro. Yes, I was, man.
I know.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. So do we have any singers in the room to lead us in the Black National Anthem? Imari, do you want to do it? So, no. Okay, I'll just wing it. Yeah, okay, so let's stand.
Is the auditorium department open?
Yeah. We give out hearing aids, don't worry. Okay, so who wants to start? It's in your program booklet. And sing till heaven, heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading a path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who has brought us thus far on the way, Thou who has by Thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met Thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget Thee. Shadowed beneath Thy hand, may we forever stand. True to our God, true to our native land. Okay, recognizing our ancestors, we're now going to do our affirmation of the African pledge. We are an African people. We will remember the humanity, glory, and suffering of our ancestors. We will honor the struggles of our elders. We will strive to bring new values and new life to our people. We will have peace and harmony among us. We will be loving, sharing, and creative. We will work, study, and listen so we may learn so we may teach. We will cultivate self-reliance. We will struggle to resurrect and unify our homeland. We will raise many children for our nation. We will have discipline, patience, devotion, and courage. We will live as models to provide new directions for our people. We will be free and self-determining. We are an African people, and we will win, and we will win, and we will win. Yes! So thank you. Is there anything else on the, I think, lunch is up. Do you all feel empowered now? Thank you. So this has been a wonderful celebration. Thank you again to Imari. Please stay for lunch. Lunch is served. Are you, yeah? You're not, can we, what about for Imari? Yeah, okay. Stay.